So the Pittsburgh Steelers finally did it. They extended Alex Highsmith. They have locked in the outside edge rushers for the Pittsburgh Steelers for the foreseeable future. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, ring that notification bell, that way you're notified of all of our content. We're going to talk about Alex Highsmith, his importance to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and how important this extension is. Like I said, hit that like and subscribe. Welcome to the huddle. So, per in Rappaport, sources state that the Steelers and star pass rusher Alex Highsmith have agreed to terms on a huge 4-year, $68 million extension to pay him among the top 10 highest paid edge rushers in the NFL. Coming off of a career with 14 and a half sacks, Alex Highsmith cashes in, and Pittsburgh locks in a key player for the foreseeable future. Like I said, this is a guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted, developed, and we go back, in time a little bit, and go back towards when the Pittsburgh Steelers acquired Melvin Ingram in free agency. He was supposed to have been that guy that was going to be the third outside linebacker, the guy in the rotation, the guy that's supposed to be giving a break to TJ and Highsmith, and there not be a huge dump off in play when a backup outside linebacker comes in. Unfortunately, because of the fact that he thought that he was better, which hasn't portrayed in the stats or on the field. Because he thought he was better, he found his way outside of Pittsburgh and moved on. But, in that opportunity, Alex Highsmith showed that he is very well capable, willing, and not going to fall under the lines of what made Melvin Ingram leave, which was he wasn't a part of the team. He didn't build. He wasn't a part of the culture. He wasn't a part of, what made the Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Alex Highsmith falls in line as far as what the Pittsburgh Steelers want to do. He is a competitor. He's been there since he was drafted as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he has bought into what the Pittsburgh Steelers are selling as far as trying to go out there and get that Lombardi trophy. Now, let's see what Alex Highsmith brings to the table, so to speak. So this is from PFF. Last season in 2022, he had 37 solos tackles, which was tied for 10th. He had 10 assists, which was tied for 27th. He had 15 sacks. Now, for whatever reason, this says 15. I guess they don't do halfers here at PFF, but according to Pro Football Reference, Ian Rappaport, and NFL Stats, Alex Highsmith only had 14 and a half sacks, but he is tied with fifth. So he is in the top 10 in that category and had 5 forced fumbles, and he is in second. Overall, PF, like I said, PF grades, they are what they are. A lot of folks don't put a lot of weight into them, just mainly because of the fact that they can be a little bit biased sometimes, and the person reading it can be a little bit biased too. And so they gave Alex Highsmith 78 overall. His run defense is at 73.3, pass defense is at 70.7. And so these are the ratings that they had given him. He had, like I said before, 37 solo tackles, 10 assists, 5 forced fumbles, 41 stops, 15 sacks, which was actually 14 and a half, 35 hurries, 5 hits, and 55 total pressures. Now, as you can see throughout his career, or even throughout the season, let's start off with his career. Starting in 2020, his grade was at a 72 defensively. He had 2 sacks throughout the entire year, 15 hurries. He wasn't starting many of the games at this point, but Dupree was still. And, he did all right. He did okay. He wasn't he showed promise. His second year, he dropped down to a 67 per PFF. And, everything went up, though. He had 8 sacks, 8 hits, 19 hurries. If we change this up to 2022 here recently, this has been his best year as a pro. He's ranked at 78 is his rating on defense per PFF. He had 15 sacks, 5 hits, 35 hurries. Best season by far. Now let's break down what he was able to do throughout the season. I know a lot of people have indicated that his best work is when TJ Watt is healthy and opposite side of him. Well, last season, TJ Watt was only healthy for 1 game, and that was against the Cincinnati Bengals. The rest of the season, TJ Watt was not TJ Watt. He was out there and he was still better than majority of the outside edge rushers in the league, and still made a presence and made and forced the opposition to keep honest and to play him with a certain amount of respect, which allowed other players to eat But I think that this year, a healthy TJ Watt, a healthy Larry Ogunjobi, a healthier Cam Hayward, he's up there in age. You can't, regress that. That can't go backwards, right? He's going to continue to grow, and Father Time wins all matchups. We all know all the sayings. He's up there. But because of the health of everybody else and the acquisition of a Keanu Benton and the draft, that leads me to believe that they're going to be able to put a pitch count, so to speak, on Cam Hayward, and that could elevate his play while he's on there, and also prolong his career as well. And so I'm excited about that, and I think that with all of this put together, this could lead up for a very solid year for an Alex Highsmith. Now, I would expect that when you have all of those criteria and all of those um, everything like that falling into place as far as health goes, don't be surprised if we do see a small amount of sacks dropped, from what you would expect from a healthy TJ Watt. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to expect to see under 10 or any of those things, but somewhere around 16 to 20, maybe 18, which is still a very excellent season. It's still a all pro, Pro Bowl season. It's just not that 22 and a half record breaking. And I think the reason has to do is because of the excellent players that are around TJ Watt, and Alex Highsmith is one of them. Now let's look at the sacks progression and how he fared, Alex Highsmith, throughout the year. So starting off with, he started the year and ended the year great. First game against Cincinnati, he had 3 sacks. The last game against Cleveland, 3 sacks. Now, TJ Watt left, towards the end of that Cincinnati game, came back week 10 against the New Orleans Saints. And in that game, Alex Highsmith had 2 sacks. Now, the rest of those games, we have the Vegas Raiders, the Carolina Panthers, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's 4, where Alex Highsmith had one sack. And in those games, TJ Watt was on the field as well. So you have 4 during that time. New Orleans Saints, he had 2. TJ Watt was there, so that's 6. He was there for Cincinnati and for Cleveland, so that's another 6. So that's 12 of the 14 and a half. So obviously, if TJ Watt's not there, he's hitting about 3, maybe 2.5 sacks throughout that period. But TJ Watt wasn't healthy the entire year. And if you go back and watch the All 22, the opposition knew that. Now, the Steelers kept the opposition honest by having TJ Watt out there and forcing offenses to be honest and take care of him. But they were clearly sliding their protections towards Alex Highsmith. He was clearly the more healthier, more dynamic of the 2 last season. And he was still able to put double-digit sacks, career sacks. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up somewhere around the same, anywhere between 12 and 16 sacks next year, which I think will be an excellent number for him. And an excellent time, expectation for what the Pittsburgh Steelers are paying him to get back in retrospect for his contract, for the production. I think this is a guy also that has developed and gotten better at rounding out the edge on the run support, sealing that edge. That was something that Bud Dupree did fairly well. He was a guy that had a heavy motor and was close many times, similar to Alex Highsmith, was usually beaten to the quarterback by TJ Watt or Cam Hayward. But one of the things that Bud Dupree had over Highsmith early on in Highsmith's career was that Bud Dupree was able to seal the edge and contain the run from the opposition. Alex Highsmith, he's not saying that he struggled in that or any of those things, but he wasn't up to the same level. And I think last season, and as he progresses and as he learns and as he, fine tunes his craft, that is something that has gotten better over time. I think his pass coverage ability is excellent for his position and for what is expected of him. He's got a couple of interceptions under his belt throughout his career. So I think this is a very solid move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It solidifies the outside edge, and it gives Alex Highsmith the opportunity to go into full training camp, not doing a holdout, not doing a hold in, sitting out on the sideline, being able to participate throughout the entire time. That builds camaraderie, that builds chemistry amongst the new players and old players, and just team building and team building efforts. So I think that Omar Khan is doing an excellent job by taking care of a lot of these incident or issues early on. If we go back to when TJ Watt signed his extension, that that was after, he had a hold in and all these things. And granted, he came out and played fantastic that season, but he was riddled with growing injuries throughout the entire year. And it was speculated, and I'm not a doctor or a medical professional, but it was speculated that a lot of that had to do with the fact that he was missing key developmental time during the developmental aspect of football, which is training camp and preseason, because of the contract situation that he had. And so we get to avoid all that. I liked what Omar Khan is doing. The Khan artist strikes again. He's been taking care of the players early and ahead of time. That way, there's no distraction. There's no, um, minds elsewhere. These players can get their contracts done and then focus on what's important, which is football and getting another Lombardi trophy. And I, for one, am ecstatic about the way the Pittsburgh Steelers and Omar Khan, Andy Weidel, the Rooneys, Mike Tomlin have come somewhat seems like a new approach when it comes to free agency, whether it's signing their own or signing others. I'm really, really excited about the aggressiveness of this team to keep core players. I mean, we've seen some of these core players that we would have hoped, stayed around. Javon Hargrave is one of them. You know, those type of players that have left the Pittsburgh Steelers that kind of leave us up in the air. Like, man, that could have been a good player for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a long period of time, and the Steelers drafted him. So I, for one, am glad and happy with this move. I think that this also kind of points to maybe perhaps, you know, in the future, the Pittsburgh Steelers might be addressing the next position to be addressed long term. Will probably be the middle inside linebacker position. I've said it multiple times. Holcomb and Roberts are, in my opinion, guys that are bridge gap guys, and maybe perhaps next draft, which looking way too early for. But I think that might be the position that the Pittsburgh Steelers address early on. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about Alex Highsmith's extension. Is this a good move? Is it a good move for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Were you hoping that he would get this extension before training camp afterwards? Let me know. I want to hear your thoughts and theories. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and ring that notification bell. That way you're notified of all of our content. With that being said, I'm Daniel J. This is State of the Steelers. We'll see you next time.